Hello and welcome to Math 8. My name is Mrs. Leiss. I am your child's 8th grade math teacher for this year. Just want to introduce myself. If you're wondering what to expect from 8th grade math, this is the right place to come. The topics we'll be covering this year are listed at the middle of this page. This is the class syllabus that I'm going to go through quickly. It is found in the students' Echo in their first quarter, first day of school folder. So if you need to if you want to see it again, you'll have access to it there. Just have your student sign you in. Also, if you do not have parent access to Echo, please make sure you're contacting the technology center, and asking someone for that so that you'll have the parent access and you'll be able to go in and monitor your child's academic work this year. Echo can be a little bit confusing, so you may need to have your child kind of show you how to navigate it a little bit. But we get into a lot of things. Essentially, 8th grade math is like pre-algebra. I tell my students every year, if you can hang in there with me this year, you will be just fine in Algebra 1 next year. A lot of the topics we will cover, they actually get a lot more in depth in Algebra 1 next year. So students email me, after they've had me, and they'll reach out to me their freshman year and be like, Mrs. Leiss, I can't believe how much of this stuff we actually learned last year. It's so easy. So I encourage the kids. They're going to spend a lot of the year struggling and not feeling like they're understanding, but they're learning a lot more than they think they are. So tell them to hang in there. Whether we are virtually, which like we are now, or if we do decide to come back to in-person school, the requirements or the school supplies your child needs are probably going to be the same. So just really to help them stay organized, a folder, a binder that's just for math, notebook or paper. Even if we're virtual, they're going to need to take notes. And in math, some of the notes we'll take are really hard to do on the computer. Writing utensils, preferably pencils, because we will make a lot of mistakes. If they have access to graph paper, that's ideal. But if not, we have workarounds that we will use digitally. They will need their school-issued Chromebook. Now that we're a couple weeks in, we already have students that are having Chromebook issues, and we'll get to that later in this presentation. But if your child is spending the night somewhere else, or they go and they're staying with family member at any point in time, please make sure they take their school-issued Chromebook so they can access everything they need for school. And then if they have, for the time we're in virtual school, this is not always ideal for all of the homes. But if there is any way where they can have a dedicated just space where it's a little bit quieter so that they can hear, they can see better, there's less distractions. I can't tell you how many times we're meeting with students and they've got a TV on in the background, or they're playing music, or they can't hear me because of the noise in the background. I understand that that's not possible for everybody, depending on where the student is learning from. Some families have really large families that have a lot of kids learning virtually. I'm just asking the best you can so that the students can be the most successful. Here is our daily schedule. This is kind of what your child should be navigating through as far as 8th grade goes during the day. And here's what they can expect. Daily information is given on our Echo agenda for math class. Any necessary links that they need or an explanation of what's going on in class is there. I have been creating an agenda video every day that actually is me talking similar to this about what they need to get done in class that day. So if a kid is absent or they miss class, they can always go back to the agenda for the day or days they've missed and get the information necessary. That's the great thing about virtual learning, is even if they miss class, they can still access everything before the next class. There are live Google Meet meetings every single day for math class. These are so important to attend. They're important to attend because I'm able to give live instructions. I'm able to give live feedback. The kids are able to ask questions in real time. I'm asking that when the kids come on, just make sure they keep their microphone muted unless they have a question. And if they unmute, we have some kind of expectations of one another that we will unmute when someone's not talking, so we're not being rude or interrupting. It's now that we're a couple weeks in, it's very difficult for students who join a Google Meet late to kind of catch up on what they missed, because usually we've moved on. So it's important that they try to show up on time. They also are doing group work. That's hard to believe, but they are working on documents with one another. That has become a little harder to do because of the lack of ability to make their own Google Meets, but students are finding workarounds. They're FaceTiming on their phones. They're just communicating via email. Some students are using their personal Gmails to create Google Meets because they can't create their own using their school. But they are expected to work with group members. If they're not coming to the Google Meets, they're not getting assigned a group, which means now they're working by themselves and they don't get to have the ability to kind of bounce ideas off of each other or get help from one another if I'm not available. So please make sure they're coming to the Google Meets. They will have time to work on homework. And if necessary, there is some time usually built in to meet one-on-one with myself. So yes, they are expected to be attending the live meets. Yes, there are students who are not doing this. What I'm noticing is the students that are not attending the live meets are also the same students that are not turning in work. Please, please, please check in with your child. Ask them to show you their grades. Ask them to show you their math grades. That'll help you know if they're attending, because they will have everything turned in and they'll have a good grade if they are. If a student is unable to make a live meet, we've already had some students that have missed live meets due to different appointments with doctors or whatever, and most of them are being really good about sending their teachers an email. I encourage them to do that. We are more than willing to work with any student that's struggling attending the live meets, whether they have internet issues or they've got, they're in charge of also working with their younger sibling who's online. We just want them as 8th graders to start taking ownership of their learning and making sure they're communicating with us. Here's how the grades will work. If your child was a child at the middle school last year, you are very familiar with all of this. They're given grades the same way they were last year. There will be grades based on the lab sheets they'll complete, quizzes, tests. We still do those online. Group work, collaboration. They do get a grade for oral communication, and this is something students are going to really start struggling with. A lot of students do not like to unmute themselves and verbally talk in our Google Meets. I know that that's uncomfortable for many students, but I can't give an oral communication grade based on math thinking and math learning if I don't actually hear them speaking to me. There is also written communication grades and agency grades based on how much they take ownership of their learning. If they're still not understanding, they've got a variety of resources that they can use. This is hard for students to do. It's hard for students to learn how to speak up for themselves and advocate for their success. But the best thing you can do as their parent is make sure that they are speaking up for themselves. They're attending the live Google Meets. They're asking questions during the live Google Meets. They're communicating with group works. They're watching any resources we post. They're taking good notes, or they're sending us emails. We're going to ask that parents do not speak up in the Google Meets on behalf of their child. I know that is a huge thing to resist doing because you're right there with them a lot of times, but we really need the students to advocate for themselves. That's just a life skill we want them to learn. There is a high opportunity, an easy opportunity to cheat. And I am happy to say that most students don't fall trapped to this, but there are students, especially now that we are virtual, who I can already tell are just trying to Google answers. The thing about the work we're assigning right now, they can't Google the question and get the correct answer because we have made it up. It's not out there on the internet. The answers are not out there, the way things are worded. A lot of our math thinking is going to involve them explaining what they believe to be true, what they notice, how they interpret the definitions to the words. So it's really important that they're, again, advocating for themselves, resisting the urge to cheat, because it's really ultimately going to come back on them. Here's the slide that I was talking about, where if they're having Chromebook issues. Now, because this is a video, this link likely won't work for you, but again, this syllabus is in their first day of school folder. So if you go to that and echo, that link will be live. Or if they come up here to the house up at the top, that's called the Start Me page. There is a link to the Tech Center. the students need to fill out the form to create a technology ticket, and then the tech center will communicate directly with them to resolve the issue. And here are my expectations for my students. Number one, I just ask that they show up every day. Now, for different students, that may look differently. Hopefully, everybody's chiming into the Google Chats and the Google Meets. I'm noticing that there are kids that are signing into the Google Meet, but they're not showing their cameras and they're not showing their faces. I have no idea if they're actually attending class or if they have just signed in and walked away from their computer. There have been times, many times, where I will have a student signed in and I will try to verbally communicate with them and they don't respond. On my screen, it looks like they're there because their little avatar's there, but they don't respond to me. I can't help students that don't want help, and I can't help students that aren't engaged. So encourage them to be engaged in math. They're going to work really hard. Virtual learning adds an additional challenge. I know we get burnout. I know some of us are already burnout, but I'm going to need them to work hard this year. They're going to mess up a lot. I expect that. It's where we mess up is when we learn. So I want them to mess up. I want them to be willing to share their mistakes so that we can learn from them. Participate in the Google Meets in class or in person. Ask a lot of questions. I am myself, I'm a question asker, so I ask a lot anyway. I want them to ask questions. They're showing eagerness and agency to learn. I ask them to be respectful to the classmates and any adult that may be in the classroom during virtual learning. Some of my classes, I have a co-teacher. A couple other classes, I have an instructional assistant that comes in with me. No matter who's in, or if I'm absent a day, there's going to be an adult covering my Google Meets. I expect them to be respectful of any expectations that normally take place. I also expect them to respect any of the learning environments, in person or digital. And we're going to make a lot of mistakes academically and personally. There's going to be days where they're not going to get along with me, or I might not get along with them. That's normal. That's 8th grade. That's adolescence. And if, as a parent of a child, you know that. Every day is a new day. Every day is a chance to start over. And every day I just want them to come in, be themselves, and learn. I appreciate you taking your time to attend open house tonight. Please contact me if you have any expectations that I need to know about. You can't click on this icon, but I'm going to have an icon on your student's Echo agenda or on the sign-in sheet that will allow you to do a form similar to this. I look forward to working with you. Have a great year.